Hello again, music fans, book fans, and also uh, rock bio fans. I am back here again. It's been a minute, I know, for a review of this book, which is I Am Ozzy, the autobiography of Ozzy Osbourne. Who, as we all know, has, as of the making of this video, passed away in July of 2025. So it's a couple of months ago, since since his death. But anyway, I want to review. I just recently finished this book, and I wanted to make a short review. So if anybody's interested in reading it, you know what you're getting, and especially what you're not getting. All right. So this book came out in 2009. So do the math right there. He was still in pretty good health back then. He was still taking out albums. He had released, I believe, it was Black Rain at the time, and still a couple more albums to come, in later years. All right, so this was a pretty good read, but if you're any kind of Aussie fan or just a rock and metal fan in general, many of the stories here you will have already heard. You know, biting off the head of the dub at the at the meeting with the music execs, and then biting off the head of the bat at that concert, uh, urinating on the Alamo. Those stories are here, if a bit more expanded. With a bit more context, and of course, Ozzy's seemingly endless alcohol abuse and drug abuse. And I would say, and that's a critique that I have here, more than a biography of Ozzy Osbourne, the music legend that we all know and love. This is really an account of all his addictions, you know, and starting from a very early age, even before he was in Sabbath, he was already, getting a taste for the booze, and but once he got into Sabbath, and the money started flowing, as well as the alcohol and the drugs, that's when it really got bad. Okay, so like I said, many of the stories you already know how Black Sabbath was formed. First, how uh, I believe he teamed up with Geezer, and then later with Tony. All right, forming first the Polka Talk Blues Band, then Earth, and um, and then finally Black Sabbath. All right, he does mention, of course, that era, and it does take out. I don't know, maybe not even half the book. It's only the early part of the book. He mentions the touring, but the one of the things that I was wanting to read here is more about the creation of those early albums. All of the albums with Sabbath that have now become classics and that have formed the an entire genre of music. But that's not here because he mentions them only in passing. Like we know, the music of Black Sabbath was made by Tony Iommi, the lyrics by Geezer Butler, and Ozzy says he did contribute some of the melodies that went along with those lyrics, you know, but not much else. Okay, so with many times it seems like he was just along for the ride. Likewise with his solo career. Again, we know that he was kicked out of Sabbath. That is made clear here, because it's always been a debate. Was he kicked out, or did he quit? Did he leave? He was kicked out by the other members of Sabbath because he was just not cutting it anymore. As a singer, and also his drug use was just beyond belief. I mean, all of the other members of Sabbath uh, were you know also heavily into drugs, but Ozzy just he took the cake. But anyway, leaves Sabbath. He meets up with um, Sharon Osbourne, who rescues him from the pit and makes his solo career. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne's entire solo career is due to Sharon Osbourne. Think what you will of that woman, think of you what you will, but the fact is that she kept Ozzy alive and she kept him uh, touring and recording. All right, so the solo albums also are just kind of glazed over. They're mentioned, and the success of them are mentioned. You know, especially Diary of a Madman and the Wizard Blizzard of Oz, um, and a little bit the just mentions the titles, Bark at the Moon, No More Tears, but does not go into the creation of the music. You know, he does mention with the lawsuit and problems he had with Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley, from who were in those two early albums. Zach Wild, who was with him, up until the end, uh, he mentions only in passing. But again, because like I said, much of this is regarding his alcohol and drug abuse, you know, and also goes into great detail about all of the doctor's appointments he had, what the doctors told him, uh, what happened when he went into rehab, and all of that, how he was able to score more drugs, etc. All right, and he goes into the what was the reality show, the Osbournes, which again he had little to do with. It was all set up by Sharon Osbourne, who loved the idea and who loved being on the show, and who to this day loves being a TV star. All right, and how that affected the kids. We get to know more about the because he had other kids other than what you see in the Osbourne. He had an older daughter with Sharon called Amy, and also two kids from a previous marriage with a woman named Thelma. Okay, who he does mention in part of the books, though he was married to her only in name apparently because he was never home. He was cheating on her constantly, and their kids he saw them only once in a while. All right, and but all in all, it was an enjoyable read. The whole reading on every single page, almost on every single page, about how he got drunk, pissed, smashed, high, stoned. That gets old after a while. I would have liked more about the actual music because there is very little of that in here. Perhaps there are other books that do deal with that, with the music side, but this is not one of them. All right, but still, I'm very glad I read it. This is the only one that I've read of the Black Sabbath members because I know that Tony Iommi has a book, and also Geezer Butler. I don't know about Bill Ward, but anyway, recommended. If you're a diehard Ozzy fan, if you're just if you want to know about the Ozzy's music, this is not the place to get it. But there you go. I Am Ozzy by Ozzy Osbourne and Chris Ayres. Yes. And music update on the channel coming soon, also, I promise. Thank you very much for watching. Keep rocking.